Very good evening to all of you. Welcome to the Web Talk series by being organized by the School of Modern Media, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. Friends, I am Professor K.G. Suresh, the founder dean of the School of Modern Media. And today we have a very high voltage panel, if I may say. Some of the leading names in Indian media today with us. And we are going to talk about a lot of issues today, particularly with regard to what is the current state of media and what's going to be the future. And I'm sure that it would be of immense benefit, not only to the current media students, but also media students who are aspiring for a career in media. I'm confident that the deliberations in today's web talk would be of immense help. Friends, let me briefly tell you about the School of Modern Media. It has been set up at the UPS recently, and we are, from the coming academic session, going to have courses in journalism and mass communication, digital and mass media, advertising and digital, BBA in events, public relations and corporate communication, and similarly master programs, including in photography. So these are some of the courses that are going to be offered initially. And at the next level, of course, there would be doctorate level programs also, MPhil and PhD. Now, let me introduce you to the panel, to the esteemed panel. With me is Rohit Gandhi. He has spent 3 decades in first being a frontline journalist, cover zones, and then managing newsrooms and innovating technologies to make life for journalists safe. He works on reducing global conflict by using journalism, and good communication play a positive role. And also with me is today Mr. Alok Verma, a national award-winning journalist for online news innovation. He is currently the editor-in-chief of News and News Street Media and former editor of TV Today, Star TV Interactive, and Z News. Also, let me tell you that this web talk is being live streamed on Alok's platform, News, and I'm sure that all of you are going to immensely benefit from it. Now, let me begin this conversation with what our idea of a School of Modern Media is all about, and then we will come to the discussions. Friends, when we thought about, often people ask me, what do you mean by modern media? Well, there used to be a time when we would consider a puppetry or a folk, theater as maybe part of traditional media. But with the advancement of technology, today traditional means print, today traditional media means electronic. So when we're talking about modern media, we are not in any way isolating the traditional media, no. In fact, it's a continuity, it's a continuum, wherein the print is also now digital, the electronic is also gone digital, and of course the digital is digital. So we are going to talk about integrated newsrooms. We are going to have, using the latest technologies, terms of reaching out to the generation next at a time when print editions are winding up the world over, in making news and content much more credible, accessible even to the illiterates and the semi-literates, use visual storytelling in a much more effective way. So the printed word is certainly going to be there, the textual content is certainly going to be there, but there will be a lot of visuals. The whole idea is to make journalism a great virtual experience. And that is what we are looking at. So that means an integrated newsroom, use of the state-of-the-art technology, wherein we will be having AI, we will be having robotics, we will be having using drones. For example, in a situation like the lockdown, drones would be of immense help. War situations. So, friends, let me now come to our experts. And in the backdrop of all this, Rohit, you have been there in the traditional within quote media also. In fact, you have set up many television channels. You have been at the forefront. And today you are also leading from the front when it comes to digital media. It would be great, if you can make some initial remarks on how do you look at the newsroom today and tomorrow?
The reality, whether it's television, whether it's print, it's a thing of the past. It's video, video, and video. About 85% consumption of all news content is going to be video. And this is information from over 2 years ago that we knew this is coming. By the time we reach 2022, the expectation is about 93% of all content consumption, or if you want to call it news consumption. I want to clearly distinguish between content and news, is going to be on video. So first opening statement, video is the way to go. There isn't a way around, because consuming that content, one, it brings you credibility. Two, the reality of this is that news content today is turning out to be just content and not news content. It's becoming more armchair journalism, as we call it, from studios. What is required now is for it to get back out of studios and back on the field. So what it's going to take is extremely well-trained journalists. Journalists, when you leave your schools and colleges, wherever you're going out from, you must know why you're doing what you're doing. If you're coming out of a university with a bachelor's or a master's degree, and you don't know how to produce and understand and recognize news, you've not been taught what you were supposed to be taught. The last, use of technology from the field, which means news content will see a massive amount of evolutionizing now. We will see news content from the field and not from studios, and I think that's the way to go. If we can continue creating more and more guerrilla journalists, as I call it, there's people going out there giving you the information and bringing it back to you, whether it's using other technologies like robotics, virtual and augmented reality, is going to be just keep on, giving it more and more finished. But that's the way to go. So absolutely, that's the way. Digital is the only way forward. We recognized it when I was setting up WION in 2016, that that's the way to go. And so we put in all technologies in place to make sure that we will align with that vision in the future.
Thank you, Rohit, for that insight. Now let me come to Alok for his preliminary remarks. He has been a cross-media journalist, headed some of the leading television channels in the country, and also pioneered in a way what today we celebrate as citizen journalism. So Alok, your initial thoughts before we proceed towards the discussions.
Thanks, KG, for being there, and I'm there with you today. And first, congratulations for setting up this new institute called as Modern Media. And I'm sure with your background, you have been a great, project man. Wherever you have been, you're setting up very successful ventures all through. So I'm sure this will also be a great success time to come. I'm sure that you must have given a lot of thought behind the terminology, which is Modern Media Institute. In my understanding, I've spent 36 years now. And out of these 30 years, I was at the cusp of every decade when it started in 80s. There was a change of technology. So when I was working in a newspaper format, the so-called litho press used to exist, where you the type and put into the press. And during that time, when I joined profession, this whole world moved from that printing to basically, into a computer, first time computers, where you used to get, yarns and yarns of, white bromads that we used to call. And those times in 80s, we saw a great technology change so far as the newspaper world was concerned, and there was no color. But as we moved into 90s, the color came and the whole printing technology change, and then print into great technology change. So each decade there was a change as far as technology is concerned for the use by journalists. Moved into 90s, you saw the advent of television in its primitive forms. Moved to 2000, you saw a whole change in the broadcast medium, and then we crossed 2010, and we are today in 2020. So I would say each decade saw a change in technology, and most of the technologies were meant for the use of journalists in a newsroom. So I do not see a great talk about the technology, because technology has been always there for a journalist to use. The only thing is today changed is that the technology is in the hand of a common man. That means it is not a only privilege of a journalist that he will only use technology and then be part of that great newsroom. Today, anyone who has got the advantage of technology just through a mobile phone can actually perform a role of a journalist. Therefore, we are seeing or platforms like Twitter, or platforms like YouTube, or platforms like Instagram, and there are so many others which are going to come. Each platform, if you really see, they have become the mainstay for each traditional media newsroom. So it is basically in the hands of two kinds of people. One, who are trained journalists using the same technology for the benefit of the existing newsrooms. And on the other side, you have a whole lot of people who are sitting outside the newsrooms, are in fact adding the same technology to their own tools, and also becoming a broadcaster or newscaster or news presenter. The only question today is that how do you make a differentiation between the trained journalist or the untrained journalists, who are also there, as many as you can see. I think here the role of institute like yours, who's thinking and envisioning such kind of people who could be trained for a better use of technology. I would say that what basically we need to say, I broadly categorize today's journalism under two broad categories, as I call them programmed journalism or creative journalism. What does mean by programmed journalism, which we call as the ownership journalism, where ownership journalism means where I own something, whether in a non-negotiable format or a negotiable format. But my objective is to basically own that format. And the traditional journalist, or even the digital journalist today, somehow are part of that programmed journalism. And the other is the application journalism, where you use application for the benefit of proffering the content. And here I'm going to limit myself only to news right now. So the programmed journalism is where actually you use a whole lot of knowledge, discriminatory knowledge. Then you should understand the data part of it. How do you see the data? And then how do you interpret it, and how do you present it? And you really see that today's newsrooms in the hovering between these two. The programmed journalism, where they are owning it or they're applying it. And each traditional media today has got a digital arm and also a traditional arm. So there is a very, very thin line that today all the media industry, all the media, media industry can't be said that they are not onto the digital. Absolutely. However, there are independent digital platforms. the independent digital platform who do not have the legacy of a traditional media. But then if you do not have the traditional media legacy, then you are actually restricting yourself either in the form of application journalism or creative journalism. When you say creative journalism is all what you get the freedom for. That means you think out of box, you think not the way a traditional journalist thinks, and that's where the future lies.
Yes.
And in that, the Modern Media Institute concept is going to be playing a very important role.
Thank you.
So
Thank
these
you,
are my
Alok.
preliminary thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alok. That
Which I
brings
wanted to
me to
share
a
with
very,
everyone who's listening to me
yes.
on this.
Thank you, Alok. That brings me to a very important question which you raised. These days, a lot of youngsters, in fact, majority of them are on social media. And they are also writing on a lot of stuff, on politics, on ideology, on culture. I mean, you name it, and they are writing on it. And you refer to the concept of citizen journalism, wherein, you know, it's not just the traditional journal, but every citizen, because that's what our constitution also provides for Article 19(1)(a). You know, so that is applicable to us also. So everybody is writing. But Rohit, is being active on social media good enough to be a journalist? What is the importance of hands-on training? Or you just be an amateur and then become a successful journalist? Or is it equally important to go to your school and get hands-on training, learn from the, luminaries like you, and, then go on to practicing that profession, that trade?
In the last decade, what we've seen is our transition phase, if I may call it, from being closed newsrooms, extremely well monitored, a very hierarchical situation, if you want to call it that. The last 10 years have seen this transition from a completely tightly held situation to a held situation. Comes with its downsides of unchecked information floating through, information which is wrong coming through, people abusing that information. And I think that's where our biggest challenges are going to come from. If you see in the recent past, you've seen that the government has taken steps. It's gotten people arrested, it's thrown people into jails across the globe. We are seeing this trend that people will have to step in because there's going to be defamatory things said. There are going to be things said which are not true. There'll be people who will begin taking advantages of it. People, companies, political parties, there is tremendous amount of that. And I think we must make sure that we are able to deliver credible information. Now, for credible information, which means we will have to make sure that our slander laws and defamation laws are very, very active. They're working. And if a newsroom even or an individual takes that approach of, putting out slander in place, then they are taken to court and they land up paying for what they're putting out as information. And that is where I think the check and balance comes.
And that calls for training, hands-on training.
And 100%. And that is why training will become important, because if you put out slander against somebody or you put defamatory remarks against somebody and you're taken to court and your house is sold,
absolutely,
you will not put out that information, which means we'll have to come back to the basics that your information must be credible, your information must be well vetted, and you must know your land wherever you operate as a journalist. It is not going to be that you'll be able to put out any information and get away with it, whether even if you're a properly a journalist working for a newsroom. I have called upon, if you put out wrong information, you must be prosecuted and your newsroom must get shut down. It must get suspension when it needs to get shut down. So good, solid training is going to be an essential part of it. And then ownership of a far more distributed medium, which Alok talked about, creatively owning your own platform. Hallelujah. If you fall into that category, you must be able to. And we will have to begin distinguishing between news creators and content creators. Content creators must be a separate platform. News creators should be a separate platform. We possibly need, like almost on a Twitter account or whatever account, you need verification. This is a journalist, credible information comes from them. or it isn't a credible journalist. We don't know this is a journalist, this is just information. So people must be able to distinguish whether they want information from people who are established as journalists or they are established as content creators. And so I think that's the journey. Journalism schools such as yours are going to come and play a role in it, and people will then sooner or later understand the value of good, solid journalism, helps in maintaining democracy, helps in maintaining better societies.
Absolutely. Rohit, undoubtedly, as you rightly pointed out, a hands-on training is very critical. Otherwise, they just wouldn't know the difference between, covering something and aspects of slander, defamation, libel, violation of IPC and criminal procedure code. These are things that every journalist should be aware of. Alok, that brings, because you have been an entrepreneur also, and you have been heading news channels, and you have been going also to different media schools, obviously as a teacher, and you have been hiring a lot of people. But when you hire people, what has been the general trend that you have been seeing? What has been really lacking in media schools, which the industry requires? In fact, I know of many young journalists coming back and telling me, sir, when we go to the industry, we are told by our seniors that forget whatever you have learned till now. We will teach you what actually happens in the newsrooms. So they're asked to forget whatever they learned in the media school. So is there that kind of a gap between the media school and the industry? What do you find lacking in media schools?
KG, the problem is that, we need to have somewhere some whipping horse who can be, lash. This, if you even study in IIT or in IIM, the business where finally you join as a job, you are always told, what you have learned in IIM is not good enough, here at Unilevers or at whichever, place you go. So you do a lot of unlearning, and, all organizations have got their own working culture and their own concepts, which they've developed over a period of time, and that's why they want, everybody to get into their culture. So I would say that any and every media institute, it's like that, I would say like this, you are known by the company you keep. So
Absolutely.
The question is, in any media institute, if there is an institute which is being headed by KG Suresh, and if there is an institute which is headed by some Mr. Lambal Halwai, so obviously there is going to be quite a difference between these two pedigrees. So people need to know the institutes are being run by what kind of people. The institutes are run by whom, what kind of a background they come from, what kind of faculty they have, what kind of resource they have. Because unless you have got that kind of a background, that kind of a pedigree, institute opening is the easiest thing one can do. But not necessarily every institute is going to teach you the same way as probably a KG Suresh institute is going to teach. So that's the difference comes. And a whole lot of institutes, media institutes, are working and operating in India where there is no faculty, or there is no credible faculty. The faculty has never seen a newspaper, has never written a word for a newspaper or worked for a television. And that teacher is teaching a student how to work in a live newsroom. So how can he teach? He cannot teach. But what happens that most of his students, in the absence of the right information, in the absence of their, what you call, the whole marketing gimmick, they are able to enroll into such institute and they get a bad name. That's one part of it. The second part of it, as you asked me, why the industry people find a little bit of gap between what the requirement is and what the institutes are being teaching. I can tell you that in 2003, finally, I was so fed up with the kind of stuff we were getting from all media schools, including the ones which you headed later part, and brought a lot of changes. Because at that time, you were not able. I mean, in fact, in 1995, when we started Z News, we recruited a whole lot of people, batches after batches only of IMC. And if you're really taking it, if you take into account that today's editors who are heading all channels today are actually from the IIM, Indian Institute of IMC.
Yes.
But the question is, at that time, we recruited everybody from IMC. There were not enough institutes. But in 2003, I can tell you, when I was part of TV Today Network, we were not able to find good students. And what happened that in 2004, I had to set up the TV Today Media Institutes because we were not able to get that quality students. But I'm not saying that today, that those TV Today Media Institute was a pioneer. After that, NDTV and every other media,
Yes.
company started an institute, except the Times being the, exception, because Times Media School ever existed. So my whole submission here is, KG, is that students need to also understand. The students must know whether they want to be a journalist and they want to grow as a journalist. The problem lies here. They want to be a journalist, but they don't want to grow as a journalist. That's where the problem arises. So in my understanding is, the Media Institute, wherever the media industry is finding a problem, the problem is here. The problem is they want people who want to grow as a journalist, who just don't want to be a journalist. So therefore, the media institutes, whenever are not preparing students to grow as a journalist, there is a lag, and therefore there is a problem.
Thank you, Alok, for that those important, I think that pointers to what's happening in the media today. Now, Rohit, so in the light of what Alok has said, what do you think are the qualities, as also qualifications, required to be a good journalist, to be successful, to be a good journalist? What are the qualifications required? What are the qualities required? If you can briefly sum up.
For me, the first thing is research oriented, which means somebody who's capable.
Yes.
You must look at the plethora of information available. Don't look at a sliver of information and reach your conclusions. Second, detail oriented. That means you may take the pains of, when you put out content, when you make news content, that you're detailed around it. You do not miss, you do not, falter in translations. You do not falter in making sure that you have details.
And you're not shallow and superficial.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The third most important bit is honesty. It needs to be as part of your, ethos, that you will produce content which is completely honest. If you do not understand that bit of it, the rest of the two, it doesn't matter at all. So even though you may have good solid information, but you are dishonest in your whole approach, it is not going to work out. So the last thing I think, which is extremely, extremely important for any journalist, is to make sure that the content does not invade on anybody's privacy and does not cause harm to anybody. Very, very important one, what we describe as making sure you protect unsophisticated source. I know it is a very bad term to use, but globally, we make sure that the content that we produce, the news content that we produce, is not going to harm somebody who is not sophisticated enough to protect themselves.
Absolutely.
I remember a journalist did an interview with a refugee who was an economic refugee in Canada, and releasing the person's name would have thrown him out of Canada. The journalist went out, discussed with his boss, and said, "Okay, we will not release his name because that is not what we are supposed to do. As soon as we do this, the person is going to get thrown out." The law has to take its own course to find out what's going on. We will talk about what the issue is, not go and target a poor man who's come away, running away from a situation which was very bad in his own country, and is now looking for refuge and is still not capable of getting the refuge because the laws don't completely permit that. So he's an unsophisticated, or she's an unsophisticated source. So we must protect that unsophisticated.
And in terms of qualification, would you suggest that at least a graduation in journalism should be?
I think it is a given. Without, you must have your basics in place. I would say, you must have these ideas in place. And really, it's like you don't go recruit a doctor who doesn't have a degree. You don't go get a lawyer until you've passed the bar exam. You don't have to be, you have a law degree, but you must have
Absolutely.
passed the bar exam. So there has to be, now you've taken one very important part of our whole world is based on what journalists provide you information for. And if they're delivering you information which is garbage and is going to create a whole riot in your whole, country or your neighborhood or your city, then you must certainly, be a little more responsible. And government needs to certainly play a good role. It should not play the role of a policeman, but they should be a good, solid body playing a role of making sure that information that comes out is honest and truthful and not based on, and making sure that we have those things covered. Hate speech must be condemned. It should be taken down right away. And so I think so. The question you asked is, what do you require? Detail, research, honesty, understanding how you will impact people's lives.
Very valuable inputs, I must say, Rohit. And taking a leaf from what Rohit has said, now, talking about qualification, Alok, how important is learning about modern media? Important even for those who are looking at a career in print or electronic? Alok, if you can unmute yourself.
So you finished with the question?
Yes, Alok, I was wondering that if taking a leaf from what Rohit had said, how important is it to learn about modern media, digital media, new media, you call it whatever it is, even for those students who want to go into traditional media like print and electronic?
So without understanding and knowing the new technology tools or the modern media, as you're saying, you in any case have no future. So there is no debate on that. So, sir, just saying that you know how to write or how to speak is not good enough, because you need to understand that today you are in a world where the every step at every task which you do, whether in a traditional media or a digital media, is today the technology is in the forefront. Therefore, the technology is something which is going to be, is going to be embedded as so far as your journalistic career is concerned. So you can't really do away with it. And the more you learn, it is going to be better for you. So this is something like this, that I drive a car. So I drive a car, I know about it. But if I do not know how to replace a car, punctured tire, then you are not a good enough driver. So it's something like this. Knowing language or expressing it, or you are able to type it, is the essential part of it. You in any case, you have to have that. But if you do not know the use of technology, then you have no future. Therefore, learning technology, learning modern tools, learning, the modern media is something which you have to do it. Without that, you have no future. But I'll say something a little more beyond that. I would just say that we play almost two sides of personality. The one side of personality is that you are going to be part of, as a journalist, where you are working for some organization and you are spending your whole life there, and you are putting out content as per the brief of what the organization is expecting you to do. The other part is your other personality, which is also a journalist but living out of the outside the limits of your organization. At that point of time also, you have to be a journalist. So you can't really say that while I'm inside an office I'm a journalist, and when I'm outside the office I'm not a journalist. The biggest problem is that people try to make that distinction today. That distinction cannot make you a good journalist. So therefore, the two things, Rohit has already given a huge list of the qualities which are very essential for everyone to have. But I would like to add 2-3 more, which I actually apply in my own organization. I see essential 2-3 things, because I do not want to have the people who do not have the basics. If you do not have the basics, in any case, you are not required to be there in our organization. But apart from basic, what you need to have, you need to know whether how much do you think, whether you are able to think or not. If you do not have the thinking ability, then if you do not have a thinking ability, then you do not have the discriminatory powers. How do
An
you make a difference between the
analytical
right
mind,
thing
you
or the
would
wrong
say.
thing? Yeah, so thinking mind is very necessary, and those who do not have a thinking mind, and how you get the thinking mind comes only with the knowledge. The more you read, the more you try to grasp, the more you learn, that's what you give a thinking knowledge. The other part which I very clearly look in every person, I look at the element of empathy in it. If the person does not have the sympathy, I don't recruit that person at all, because I do not need robots. I need people who have got the empathy as
Absolutely
part of
important.
their personality.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok. One of the things that you mentioned, which I think is very relevant these days, again, whenever I go to address media houses, talk with editors, one complaint they often, discuss with me is that, Professor Suresh, these days, students just don't have language skills. I mean, whether it's English, Hindi, whatever, when it comes to fluency or spoken, written language, that is a complaint that you get from everywhere. Now, one of the very important highlights of the UPS School of Modern Media is going to be the language lab, which is already in place for the School of Law. So we know there are things like MTI, mother tongue influence, and other things. Now, we are going to set up a language lab also, which is going to help students in in their language skills. Now, how important, Rohit, is language and articulation, both in terms of written and spoken skills?
I want to continue also from what Alok said. He made a
Absolutely.
very, very
Yes.
good point. He talked about how essential it is for people to kind of grasp the story, which means if a journalist is going to come to me and say that, I'm sorry you haven't assigned me today, and I have to listen that from them, I already know this is not somebody, a journalist in the making. If you don't have an idea in the morning when you come at 8 o'clock in the morning to me in the newsroom, and you're floating in at 11 o'clock, for me, you're a journalist who's not a journalist. You're just floating in to be assigned a task and do it and then go away. You're a robot for me, as Alok mentioned, and I don't need that journalist as well. Now, coming down to articulation, we are in the business of communication. There are two ways of communicating. One, communicating with the audience, and two, communicating with the people we interact with as we do our journalism. Now, they must understand why we are there. It shouldn't look, feel that we are there to take advantage of them. We are there to communicate with them properly, which means they must understand, why am I doing this story? Why is it essential to tell this story to the rest of the world, so that people understand it? And that articulation is very important, and which means the empathy comes in, psychology comes in. I always, I went to a school in Pune. My first degree in communications was from there. The head of my department was a professor from Bombay, of a psychologist, Professor Deshpande, I remember. And he explained things in that format. He said, if you do not have the empathy, which Alok talked about, you will not make a good journalist. And I think it's a very, very important point. If you do not have in you why you are doing this piece, why you're doing the story, you don't know how to communicate with those people, you will never be able to sell that story. You will just be somebody who's going to go write it down. So even by the time you get to articulation, it's another story. You must know how to interact with the people. Now you have the story. Now articulating that to the audience is going to play a very important role in the language they understand. So an English audience will understand an English content, news content piece. A Hindi audience will understand the Hindi news content piece, and a mixed audience, which uses English or whatever other languages, whether it's Telugu, Tamil, whatever your audience is, segregating their audience is going to become very, very essential. And not communicating the right language is not going to be able to help you tell that story. So I think articulation across multiple layers of it, and then lying on that is understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Psychology, empathy, emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it. I think the new term for all of this is EQ. You do not have emotional intelligence, you might as well, go and do a job which is repetitive and doesn't need an intelligent thinking brain to be able to comprehend the story and then communicate it.
Thank you, Rohit. Now that also brings me to some very good questions that are coming up from students and participants, and I will also club one of my questions along with this. So here you have somebody asking, sir, after this lockdown, what do you think about the job ratio? I am very worried about it. And that brings me also to the question is, how do you think that, why do you think youngsters are coming to media? Is it glamour, thrill, social service, or the pay package?
This is for, should I take it?
Yeah, yes, Rohit.
So let me explain. More a situation like this gets created, our job becomes even more important. I have been working 18-hour days right now to get the story out, to get the information out. There are that many more people who need this information. Right now, what's working and the only things working is information. So our job becomes even more important, and jobs aren't less. Literally,
you are saying jobs are not less, there is a great demand for content
and people who actually are able to produce that content. I have great difficulty finding people who are capable of doing it. So for me, I have had to disperse a lot of the crowd which was there because they weren't good enough producers. But the people who are able to produce, I am hiring them more and more. So I actually have a need of 3 more employees just today. I need 3 employees because in the next 7 days, I need to produce about 7 pieces. And there are no people available for it. 2, making sure that if you really believe in journalism, then you're a risk taker. You're not going to, you will have protocols. So later today, I will be putting out protocols for journalists as they go to cover disasters like these. It is a massive issue today that we're going to face, but we must have a security and safety protocol. Also, about 15 years ago, when I started going into, active journalism war zones, I produced a protocol around what safety do you need as a journalist to go to a war zone. I was in Iraq.
I also circulated exactly 1 month back, which was widely covered on, in COVID hotspots, when you go, what are the precautions that need to be taken? But unfortunately, some journalists have fallen prey. Yes.
Yeah, we saw 50 journalists in Bombay, and there have been journalists all across because we are all on the front lines of it. So our job becomes more important. They need people who can actually go out and do the work, and they need people who are responsible.
So why do they come to journalism? By and large, what has been, is it the glamour of it? Is it a commitment to do something to bring about a change, or is it the pay package? What attracts youngsters journalism?
And I'll go back to what Alok was talking about. We want to produce people who want to stay and grow. And people who want to stay and grow come for the reason why journalism was created, to help sustain a quality democracy. Information, they truly believe in the society and the system we work in and understand the value they bring to what we as a society have, which means we are a check and balance of keeping our democracy alive. We are there to make sure that we're critical whenever we look at information. We are there to be there. And so people come to journalism because they truly believe that they can make a difference. They can be the voice of the voiceless. And that is our role. And I think most people who stay in the business stay for that. The one who come for, a little bit of 10 minutes of fame on television are going to, run away pretty quickly. They'll go from being, journalists to bring, these reality TV shows that we have on what we call journalism today sometimes.
Okay. Thank you, Rohit. Now I have a question for Alok. Alok, this is a question that this is from Shubha Barara. Shubha is asking, how far is journalism and ethics on ground? I believe Shubha is asking about ethics in journalism. How far is journalism and ethics on ground? That's a question. Alok.
So I'll try to take this question, and also I'll just also want to put my point on why do people come for journalism. I think there's a very important part we must not forget at this point of time, that finally we are living in a world of materialism.
Yes.
It's no longer a spiritualist world or a
Alok, sorry for
naturalist world.
interrupting you. I have
We're
one
living in a
question
material
also.
world. And if you're
Alok,
living in a material world, yeah.
Alok, I've got a question from Sparsh Gupta also related to this. Sir, what skill sets are required to become a famous journalist like Shweta Singh, Arnab Goswami, etc., in a short period of time and leaving our, traces?
So my answer for that is very quick. Then then don't start dreaming of it. Leave it right now, because there is no shortcut available. Everybody has to struggle. There is a long struggle
So there
in
are
life
no
also.
shortcuts.
Yeah. Whether Shweta Singh or anyone he has mentioned, all of them have struggled for long 20 years, 15 to 20 years to become what they have. So there is nothing like that. You can earn any kind of famous tag around you in a shortest span of time. The only person who can get a tag in the shortest span of time is something where you do something very dramatically so astounding that people take note of you. Otherwise, there is no shortcut. So here, at least 3 of us are sitting here, and all of us have probably have pretty well in life in terms of
we have
our
a
whatever
century of
names we have
experience
earned.
with us.
But we had to pay a long and very difficult price to be. Yeah. So that is to Sparsh, that in case he's looking for such a early famous stardom, so there is no shortcut. So probably it's not possible. Now
The other
to
question,
answer you the
yes.
other question.
Ethics, journalism and ethics.
Yeah, I have always talked about ethics. Ethics is not something like where we say that, when somebody says I'm honest, what do you mean by that? You need to be honest. You can't say, otherwise I was dishonest person. So honesty is something which needs to be as part of a characteristic. So as your ethics. Ethics are nothing to be, it is to be practiced, it is to be imbibed, right, not from, from society, but right from the family which you come from. So ethics are nothing but your own personal choice. You want to be honest is your ethical question. You want to be dishonest is also your ethical question. So ethics on the ground and ethics at the person are nothing, two different things. They're the same thing of the,
You have to draw your own Lakshman Rekha.
Absolutely. Now somebody just now mentioned in this conversation, and certainly on a very lighter note, not to hurt anyone, I'm simply saying that you want to be a very famous in the shortest possible time, then probably there is no ethical way of doing it. Yes. You may have to resort to some very unethical way. But Absolutely. Do you want to be unethical and then want to get that fame? That's the question you need to answer. So therefore, every organization has got where you work for, whichever organization, journalistic organization you work for, every organization is ethical as far as the practices are concerned. And at least at your level, because you are going to work at the very entry level after passing out from the institute. And at least at that level, there is no compromise on ethics. The ethical questions can come for people maybe sitting at the very top management, where Absolutely. There are some debatable questions between the editorial decision making versus the business decision making.
Absolutely.
There might be some at that point of time.
But certainly not at the,
not at the level that you are. The other part was somebody probably you were referring to about my future in journalism.
Yes.
The future in journalism has always been debatable. If you are good, you need not worry for anything.
Yes.
If you are not good, then all worries start. Because you need to be so good in your work that you should not be, that is the last worry you should come into your mind. Because if you are not good, then obviously the persons who are not good will be, ticked first in terms of the job insecurity. But if you are good, there is no organization willing to compromise or willing to let you go out of the organization when you are good. If you're not good, then, at any point of time, you can be asked to go whether good times or bad times. The third point, if you are entering the institute, this modern media institute, and you are going to enter at the year 1. By the time you are going to graduate, maybe 2 years from now, I think the situation is going to be far different. That today the world may be looking gloomy because of certain things which we are, at the time witnessing. But this is a cycle. It is a cycle. These
Absolutely.
cycles keep coming and keep going. It's not something which is going to be very static. It is going to stay for very long. So I don't think these are the questions which should worry a student at this point of time. But I certainly believe the students, anxiety, and which as elders and as seniors, we should also, empathize with them. Yes, every journalist or every student who today join any media institute for a study and want to become a journalist, for him, one of the greatest, kick to be part of this field is also to earn decent money. So
Absolutely.
today, media organization paid very decent money to survive, to thrive, and to do good well in life.
Thank you, Alok, for that very, very practical tips. Rohit, a very important question coming your way. This is Utkarsh Upadhyay from Mayur Vihar, Delhi. He is asking, how should media be considered as neutral in today's phase? Because it's serious topic to be worried about for coming generation. It's about the neutrality of media. This is a question from Utkarsh Upadhyay.
There is no news without neutrality. And neutrality of content, I mean, is value neutrality. If you do not understand the concept, what value neutral is, which means you're not biased, you're not, completely objective, then you shouldn't be part of the news media. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward, is how do you distinguish the information that's going to be completely value neutral. We see a lot of extremely right-leaning, extremely left-leaning. What we have left in between is a sliver, very, very tiny sliver of people who genuinely still look at journalism the way traditionally they used to. Today, a lot of the media houses work for governments, work for companies, work for interests, protecting their businesses sometimes. And that is going to be our biggest challenge. So other countries, if I may, take examples of, will make sure that there is no cross ownership of certain amount of companies. You only own a certain bit of media, and there is a check and balance. That means there is a CRTC, there is a council involved in making sure when your license can be revoked, when you become when you begin reporting information which is not right. So I think that check and balance must stay. We must maintain it. Otherwise, if we do not keep media value neutral, we will not have a democracy. You won't have
Absolutely.
a democracy.
Thank you.
You're looking at an entirely different system.
Thank you. My request to panelists are to to give brief replies, because we have a lot of questions coming our way, and even from faculty members. And Alok, next question to you, and that is, yesterday there was a release about freedom of journalism and press, and India is at the 147th position. Can you tell me the reason for that? And is journalism in India good? And maybe you can answer the other question also. The second question is, college students are often projected to belonging to a particular political ideology, especially journalism students. But isn't it true that we should just focus on strengthening democracy in our country? Now, the first question was from Balaji Kannan about the 147th position of India, and is journalism in India good? And this question is from Stuti Galhotra, and she is asking about college students, the polarization among college students, and should they be just focusing on strengthening democracy? Two questions. Yes, you are, unmute yourself, Alok. Alok, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I said my humble request. Yeah, I've done it. So my humble request to both Balaji and Stuti would be that these are the questions which we can actually debate and should not be a great concern. However, just to make them, more happy and satisfied for the questions they asked, first of all, the whole society is polarized today. And this polarization of the society is not something which happened just in a matter of time or in a minute or in a 2 hours or 5 days. This has been happening for last several years. And what we are seeing today, that today we see that, we are either this way or that way. It is just because that we as a society have moved into this kind of a polarized thinking. And this thinking is neither good or bad. This is how the society is evolving. And we are all part of that society. So every society passes through these kind of, times and events in their historical way. But if you really try to look at in a very time horizon, you will realize that this particular thing, what we're looking as bad or good, actually has no meaning, because we are in a transition phase right now. We are at one point of time, we are growing as an economy, we as a growing as a society, our education, we are getting more literate, we are becoming more thinking people, we are becoming more opinionated. We have got now the lot many platforms and the opportunities to express ourselves. So all that which was suppressed probably looked like as if we were not opinionated, or we were not having one ideological leaning this way or that way.
Absolutely.
Since it is more
Absolutely.
broader, it is much more expressive, it is much more there for us to see and react. Therefore we are finding this kind of a debate, and there is nothing wrong with it.
Alok, just one more related to this. Alok, is a question from Mohammad Safi Shamsi. He is asked a Facebook question. Running a neutral point of view is nearly impractical. Is it feasible from a business point of view?
Look, I just tell you about my training. When I was, and I'll address actually two questions. One was about your language, inadequacies you mentioned right some time back. When I joined journalism way back in 19, I was trained under a news editor called Mr. Bala Subramanian. His name, he was a Tamil, and he was such such a stickler to rules and the language and everything, that without even, it took 6 months for me to get one headline and one paragraph passed, which he did not put a red mark or did not change it. It took me 6 months. And my training period in those times used to be called as apprentices. The apprentice, junior apprentice, and then you would become a senior apprentice. That's how my training happened. Today's training periods have come down. Today's tutors and teachers are not of that quality. So there is an overall impact on the language efficiencies, proficiencies, and the quality as well. So therefore, the other point was, he said about the neutrality. When I was training under Mr. Balasubramanian, and when I look at today, that was some 36 years back, I probably feel that Mr. Balasubramanian caused a lot of damage in my personality, because he would say, this is right and this is wrong. He will not give you any gray area in between. But today, if you really look at it, the whole world is in the gray area. There is not an absolute right. There is no absolute left. You have to believe in some kind of a gray area. That's the question of neutrality comes in. The lot of neutrality is in that gray area. Not necessarily it is in the right or in the left. And moreover, problem arises when we become rigid in our thinking. That means we are not ready to change ourselves. If we are willing to change ourselves, the whole debate of neutrality will not there. Because what point of view you have today is based on certain assumptions and presumptions which you have today. But tomorrow, those same assumptions might change, and your thinking may change. But whatever we are seeing, a lot of these social media platform kind of a debate and attacks on each other, that each one, when has taken a position, one is not willing to give a space to another. That's where the problem is.
So one is not flexible enough.
It's not flexible enough.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Rohit, this is a question from Sumit Kumar Pandey from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Mahatma Gandhi Kashi Vidyapeeth. He says, my question is, shouldn't there be some important standards for journalism schools across the country, as explained in the webinar, so that students who enroll in journalism schools across the country can learn important professional journalism skills instead of just being degree holders?
So I'll start from your earlier question,
Yes.
talking about Press Freedom Index.
Yes.
From 2002, we've slipped from position of 80 to where we stand at 147 today. There has absolutely been a dramatic suppression and control of the press. And this Press Freedom Index is a very decent body which kind of analyzes it and understands it. So we certainly have gone backwards. There is no reality in it. We have to come back up on those numbers. We must make sure we do. And it's stipulated every year, so we exactly know where we stand. Now comes down to journalism school standards. I think it's completely aligned with that. We have to make sure that there is a process for analyzing the content that each of these journalism school teaches. When students graduate, is there a central process where we'll assess what kind of training these students are coming out with? Because if we do not have a standard procedure on what the students know and what they are coming out with, and then going to the industry, we'll not have a process around it. So I think as we go along, we'll have to continue becoming more and more strict, because it's taking more a center stage in our world. And as we deal with even stronger, controls on press, we will need even stronger journalists to work. It's not going to be people who will roll over for money and run away. So I think our roles becoming more and more critical as press freedom continues to drown, and we will have to play a stronger role, and journalism schools have to do a much, much better job.
Thank you, Rohit. Now, Alok, there is one question for you. This is from Stuti Galhotra. And she's saying, someone told me that journalists should always be critical and should not endorse any particular ideals. Can you please enlighten me?
So, Stuti, I will just add one word along with your word called criticism. The critical appreciation. The critical appreciation means that you need to be critical of the matter, of the subject, of the person, but the entire thing cannot be looked into just with critical eyes. There would be another element in that criticality also for the critical appreciation. That means there is not outright, and then we have learned in journalism also, all the time, that you should not be just having, putting up your, glasses and just look at the one side of the story. So, of course, journalistic primary responsibility is to evaluate and look at facts and look at developments with a lot of critical eye. But that does not mean that you just go out to find only criticality part of it. That means that you just enter into that domain, then basically you are not a journalist, then you are an activist, where your job is only to look at some way something wrong there. I'm not saying the wrong can be defended. No, wrong cannot be defended. Wrong is wrong. But you have to really find that the wrong is to be depicted with what kind of glasses you are wearing. So when you are wearing the right glasses, you will look at you look at things with a lot of critical eye, but at the same time, look at with the critical appreciation. Because the same thing, I just give you one example just to make you real happy. There was a problem for which the present government came under with a lot of criticism. What was that? Then when they launched or they announced the lockdown in the country, the whole government, the whole country faced a huge problem of the migrants leaving the cities and going back to their villages. And in that, the government came under a lot of attack that they couldn't really think through and they could not find a problem that they did not anticipate. Yes, I would say yes, that was government's larger failure in terms of not able to anticipate that this could be a problem. But at the same time, if you really look at the options available with the government for that decision, lockdown, do you think there was any way available where the lockdown shouldn't have been announced? If the lockdown, say, had not been announced, then the situation of coronavirus would have been what? We need to evaluate these things in that respect. The moment we try to apply this, then you'll be able to actually write your story in a much better way than just looking at with the critical eye.
Absolutely.
I hope.
Thank you,
If
Alok.
I may, I want to add. I'd like to
Rohit, you
add.
can also add and also respond to a question. You know,
I want
there
to
is.
add.
Rohit,
Here.
you can add. And I would also like to ask you a question, which is also you can also respond to that, because you said that you just right now you have 3 jobs with you. So somebody has asked. This is Shubha Barara. She has asked that, hello sir, I started my career as a designer in print media, then started working online too. Now added social media to my kitty. Still, the technology is changing so fast that one candidate is asked whether she knows every software, but salary brackets don't change. Any comment on this?
Okay, so first talking about critical analysis, absolutely. I think when we talk about your jobs to critique, we mean critique and analyze, more analyze than anything. So we have to be analytical in our thinking. We need to look at issues, and sometimes even then look for solutions. So let's take what Alok brought up about the lockdown. The lockdown announcement had to have a plan for people who will not be able to, daily wage workers will not be able to afford a lockdown of 3 months where they're hand to mouth every single day. Arrangements for their accommodation, rental deferrals by the government, and making sure that if they need to travel back, if they have to get back home, then their journeys back home and safety, testing of their issues. So those are all critical analysis where we as journalists must question the government if we have to question the government. It's not as if, we're going to let it go and say, oh my God, what a great job, amazing, and lockdown was announced. We also have to question sometimes the lockdown itself, that was it announced too late? Was it announced too early? Whatever be the scenario, and we must we must take a proper good approach on it. So I think our job is critical analysis. It is not about criticizing, and when there are successes, recognizing that it was a success, or whether it was a failure. The same thing happened with demonetization. There are many other things that we can look at. So there is no perfect right, no perfect wrong. There is no yes, no. Killing people is bad. Making sure that a society is empathetic and has emotional intelligence is important. So I think those are all important parts of it. We must analyze them properly. Now, talking about money is going to be based on your skill. And I say, not knowing 20 things, but if you know one thing really well and that's all you do, you will make more money. Knowing 20 things and knowing them very, very cursory level is not going to make you money. Those are just realities of life. If you're a good cinematographer, you will make 100,000 rupees a day. You're a poor cinematographer, you will make 500 rupees a day. Now you have to decide what is your specialization and what you know how to do and what you can do. And as long as you are completely aligned with that idea, that whatever I will do is going to be of highest possible quality, you will make the money. There is no way that you won't make the money. On your strength. Don't focus on what somebody else tells you. You should know what you want to do. What is that is most prized to you? And is it a skill that's required in the market?
Alok, can you hear me?
Yes.
Alok, can you hear me?
Yes, certainly I can, Kiaji. Yes, I'm hearing.
I think there is a problem with Suresh's feed. So I think it's where it stands. Alok, maybe you can pick this up as well and kind of answer this.
No, you are.
Can you hear me?
What you said, and then I think you really pointed out. Yes. Tell me, Kiaji.
Alok, there is one question. It says that most upcoming media startups are focusing on general news. Is there still space for niche news outlets such as business news, sports, health, etc.? This is a question from Mohammad Shafi Shamsi.
So, Shamsi Saab, I don't think you are very well right in your understanding. I don't think startups are launched for the general news. Most of the startups are actually getting into a niche setup, and therefore everybody is not into the very generic, because there's hardly any space available. And moreover, why one would start a new startup in a general news space, which already clocked by so many portals already, or a news channels or mainstream digital platforms. For example, our own platform, which we run as News NY000, we are completely focused at the city level news. We don't focus on anything called general news. We are very city specific, relevant, people centric news of the city. So there are many news startups which have made some kind of name to themselves, are all in the niche area. And if you really look at some of the startups which I am very fan of, for example, the India Speaks or Better India. These are some of the startups which are completely focused on stories from the success stories from the rural India or from the countryside. India Speaks is all about the certain problems, certain issues which are specifically related to the countryside. So the future is not if the digital. If the question was in the digital platforms, the future it certainly is not no longer is in the general news. It is always going to be in the niche news, whether it is business or it is global, or it's going
But
to be the social, it is going to be the
Alok,
health or education.
Alok,
This is where it's
how is the newsroom going to change in the foreseeable future? The newsroom, in your view.
uh, uh, I think I would like to answer this in a very more different way.
Okay.
KG, if I were to ask you, or if I were to answer you, or if I were to together, answer this question, how we have seen the transformation, say, of cinema. You really ask me. The cinema has transformed from, which was used to be shot somewhere in the Kashmir Valley or in some city area or in the studios, that today's cinema is all about graphics. Today's cinema is all about simulation. Today's cinema is all about, the artificial, intelligence and everything else which is being used, sophisticated, equipments, etc. But who are the people behind? They're the same intelligent people. The people who were directing, say, film 30 years ago with the primitive tools, the same directors are today directing the best of the films with the new tools. So the newsrooms are not going to change in their fundamentals. The fundamental of any newsroom will remain with the golden rules. Those golden rules are going to be staying forever. Nobody can change those golden rules. Now the fact is how the golden rules are now being presented, created, distributed, processed. Here the rule of technology is going to be in use. The virtual sets, they're going to be graphics, they're going to be presentation style, they're going to be more open-ended formats, there going to be unboxed thinking, there'll be way of presenting more data based news or the shows. All that will, and people will today, probably tomorrow, there's going to be much more I would say not a very straight jacket shows. They're going to be much more unorthodox style way of presenting news. All that we are going to see. So if your question is that will newsrooms would look like a NASA space center? No, the newsrooms are not going to look like a NASA space center. Newsrooms going to be looking where technology plays a predominant role in enabling the golden rules. So therefore, the golden rules will be enabled by use of the sophisticated technology. So the newsrooms will remain the same. The users will have to understand using the new technology in a different format, in a different way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alok, for that insight. I would like Rohit to again give his vision about, how the newsroom would be, look like in the foreseeable future. And also, there's an interesting question from Balaji Kannan. And this, since you have been in different war zones and all that, he asked, did you face a critical moment during your life of journalism? If so, tell us, and how did you tackle it? Unmute yourself. Rohit, if you can.
So first of all, integrated newsrooms. The newsrooms of the future certainly are going to be very, very highly technology driven from my perspective, which means finding news content is going to be a very important part. We are not going to miss news content because our sourcing is going to expand. Our ability to be able to filter what content and where content is going to become much faster, first of all. Secondly, our newsrooms are locating our journalists and going live is going to become far more easier. Today, we see every little small room is a television studio today. The very fact that we're doing this on Zoom today, and we are all in different parts of the world, and we are all able to connect and run a television news platform like this, it would have taken us hundreds and thousands of dollars. We can do it with next to nothing. So more and more integration of technology is going to help us create a far more greater distributed newsrooms. It does not, location is not going to matter. What's going to matter is the quality of the content, and there's going to be more live material. What will also become part of our thing is a 360 view. For example, you're covering a small location where there is news unfolding. We will see cameras which will actually give us a 360 view rather than just give you one view that you as a journalist want to show people. It will show you what's behind you, what's on your left, what's on your right. And I think that's what's going to be the next little situation as we go forward. So I think more technology driven, more connected, more interactable, and information that you want to connect to, which means at any given point of time, there is not going to be one story that's going to play out. There are going to be 50 stories that will play out. And whoever is interested in the story they're interested in will go to that story. So I think we need to become far more agile.
In fact, I would strongly recommend all the participants and attendees to certainly visit the UPS blogs, where Rohit has, and both Alok and Rohit have written blogs on new media, on modern media, and particularly Rohit has written about how artificial intelligence can help a reporter. I'm sure if you can have a look at it, you will really get some brilliant ideas. Yes, Rohit, if you can continue.
And so the idea is that we are in a very fast changing situation. Like that journalist talked about how softwares are changing. I think what doesn't change is the basis, which Alok mentioned. So we will change. We are going to become a far more diverse newsroom. We will be able to address far greater issues, which means every journalist must become even a better journalist. You are not going to be able to vet 50 stories as an editor at one time. Every journalist must be a good, solid editor. Your skill set, your skill level is going to be high, or you will be thrown out of the system because there will be no time for every story to be vetted. So as long as we begin learning that, there's going to be more collaboration in these newsrooms, and that's how it's going to unfold. Now, I'll address second, war zones. I've been in war zones most of my life. The ones who know what I do. I spent many of my years in Afghanistan. I've spent many of my years in Iraq, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, Jordan. One of the most hairy stories is from 2001. This is from June 4th, 2001. I was in Kandahar. I was with the Taliban. We were covering a story of orange bands being given to Sikhs to wear in Kandahar. Kandahar was the place from where the Taliban controlled Afghanistan. That's where Mullah Omar was. And we went in. I used to work for CNN International then to do a story around the idea of how the Taliban looked at the world and how they wanted to interact with the world. When we went there, we realized that the Sikhs were being given orange bands, just like the David Star, which the Nazis gave the Jews. And so we decided to do a story. We had a mole in our bureau, and our information was leaked out. When we came back from doing the story, we were held for about 7 hours at gunpoint. And we opened a phone call with our management, and we finally secured our release after 7 hours of intense negotiations, partial destruction of our tapes to be able to find an exit. We then exited into Pakistan via road and then came back to India. So And this has not been the only time we've gone through things like this. We've had multiple such experiences in our life as a journalist. But at the same time, we take our precautions. We make sure that we have backups. We are connected right when we go into a story. And there is a reason why we're doing a story. And we don't do an unfair story. Governments will sometimes hold us responsible. I remember in Sri Lanka once, the government, we did a story on child soldiers, and the Sri Lankan army and the government came down heavily on us saying, no, we don't have them. Show it to us. So we showed them the material that we had. So it is sometimes you will come under pressure. You will be held at gunpoint. Your life will be threatened. Many of our journalists have died. When I was in Afghanistan, where I was, like right behind my house, 3 journalists were killed overnight by people because they were carrying money and somebody stole that money from them. So things will happen, and that's part of our, part of being a journalist.
Absolutely, Rohit. A ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not where it is meant to be. Now, Alok, there is a question from Deepak Tyagi who is asking कि कोरोना के बाद पत्रकारिता का भविष्य क्या है? Yes, Alok. If you can unmute yourself. Deepak Tyagi is asking कोरोना के बाद पत्रकारिता का भविष्य क्या है?
दीपक, हर क्राइसिस के बाद पूरे विश्व में भविष्य उज्ज्वल ही होता है. तो ये क्राइसिस भी होगी, इसके बाद भी भविष्य उज्ज्वल ही होगा. तो डोंट वरी, पत्रकारिता का भी भविष्य उज्ज्वल होगा. बिकॉज दीज आर दी टाइम्स, एज आई सेड अर्लियर, ये सारे वो वक्त हैं जिस वक्त में ऐसा लगता है कि सब कुछ खत्म जैसा हो रहा है, क्योंकि एक सेंस ऑफ फियर है, सेंस ऑफ डिस्पॉन्डेंसी है, और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि पहली बार एक ऐसी चीज को हम लोग फेस कर रहे हैं जिसका किसी के पास आंसर अवेलेबल नहीं है. तो ये टाइम डिफिकल्ट है, नो डाउट, और ये डिफिकल्ट टाइम्स भी निकल जाएगा. और जब ये निकलेगा तो अभी जैसे कि आपने भी रोहित को सुना कि बहुत सारी चीजें ये सिखा के जा रहा है. क्या सिखा के जा रहा है? ये सिखा के जा रहा है कि आप जब किसी क्राइसिस में आते हैं तो आप किस तरह से बहुत सारी चीजों का इनोवेशन करते हैं. तो हमारा जैसे इनोवेशन ये आप देख रहे हैं कि द वे वी आर डूइंग दिस जूम कॉल एंड यू आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन इट, वी आर गोइंग लाइव. Just a few years ago, nobody had thought of it that this would have been possible. I'm saying this whole thing is going to give us a new learning. Many new things will get invented, many new things will be evolved, and many new ideas will come. And I think you should, as a student or likely student, or if you're already a student who want to become a journalist, then you must be at the center of it. Because you must see that transition, you must see that change, be a witness to that change. So in my opinion, get this in your head right now, that things are not going to get worse, things are going to get better, because the words cannot stay for a very long period. You should prepare for that. You should be working towards how are you going to prepare for that inning when the time is going to come, and whether you're going to be ready for that. And therefore, your entire focus, your entire effort, your entire commitment should be towards that, rather than thinking that this is very bad time, this is very, difficult days. Yes, they are. But ultimately, you should work only for the bright future.
So, Alok, we will take one last question before we wind up. It's almost 1.5 hours, so we will conclude. But before that, one more last question. This is a question from Balaji Kannan. Sir, do you agree with the statement that politicians and the ruling government have more power over journalism and press freedom?
This was always there. It is not something which you would say it has come something new. The question is that the people who were journalists at least used to have the spine. The problem today is not because the government is too powerful, it's because the journalists are too meek. If you are a very good journalist, you don't need to be meek. You need to be you can be very fearful, not fearful, and you can continue with the good quality of journalism. So it's a rule. Everybody tries to put a pressure onto you, because if you are living in a few friends in your college or in a class, you must have seen that a few students would like to overpower you. If you go to any society, you will try to see some people will come and try to overpower your thinking. It's something like that. So there is always difficult times. The government, whenever is in power, whichever government is in power, wants to influence journalism, wants to influence journalists. It's up to you how much you want to get influenced. Unfortunately, today we are actually more influenced than people used to be. Therefore, the quality of journalism used to look much brighter. Today we look, people are succumbing to the pressures very easily. Therefore, we have this question to ask.
Thank you, Alok. Now it's time to all good things must come to an end, and time to conclude with one comment from both of you, and I'll start with Rohit. Rohit, we have discussed about what goes into the making of a good journalist, the qualities, the qualifications, and all that stuff. But can you suggest some home recipes, since they are all now homebound, to become good media student? Prospective students, what should they do to become a good media student?
Let me also conclude by talking about how good journalism schools and schools that you've run make a lot of sense, and how students who are looking at creating a career must think of going to a solid school. Don't go to make sure that the faculty of the school is made up of people like Suresh, and it's solid. They are real journalists. They're not just people who cleared a NET exam and now become professors. So one, that two, if you want to really pick up journalistic skills, remember there's going to be video. Understand there's going to be audio. Understand that there is going to be ethics, values, slander, libel, the laws around it. Begin studying. Get practicing today. Don't wait for tomorrow. You want to be a journalist, there is a story wherever you look. You step outside your house, you look left, there is a story. You look right, there is a story. As long as you see the story. And if you don't see the story, go back home. You're not ready to be a journalist.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohit. And Alok?
A delicious dish is always a balance of ingredients. If you try to mix anything little more and less, the dish is not going to be delicious. The same recipe for being a good journalist is to have a good balance. The good balance of senses, good balance of knowledge, good balance of skills, good balance of personality, good balance of sensing news, good balance of right company. All that which you keep is all the ingredients will make you a good journalist. But on top of it, there is no shortcut. You have to work very hard. You have to put in hours and hours. You can't really dream of it. I will get a good job. I'll do this. Or by enrolling ourselves in just a media school will ensure a good seat in any job. It's not going to happen that. The only KG Suresh as a dean of a media school like this can help you to shape your future by giving you right knowledge, right skills, right environment. After that, it's all depend on your hard work, and the hard work is going to take you to places. Therefore, the very first step which today is being provided to you is to find the right pedigree. Once you have the right pedigree, then build your future on top of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alok. And from my side, I will just say that if you're planning to be a media student, read as much as possible. Whatever you get hold of, online, offline, watch as many programs as possible, whether it's on a digital, on television, watch as much as possible, talk to as many people as is that this is the time for input, not output. Keep your eyes and ears open so that, when you articulate, when you open your mouth as journalists, it should be a lot of wisdom, a lot of enlightenment that should be coming out. And I'm sure that, it has been a wonderful session with two of the most enlightened journalists around. And they have always been part of all my initiatives. And I can assure you, all of you who are present here, parents and students, that these are the types of legends who are going to be associated with our School of Modern Media in the coming days. And they are there to handhold your students, to take them, to prepare them, to groom them for the next generation media. They have seen it all, print, electronic, digital, and they have seen the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs. So they are the people who can not just lay the very strong theoretical foundation. So that's what we are looking at our media school, strong theoretical foundation, yet very, very practical approach to media education. That's what we are looking at. And we hope to have not just, our focus is not just on technology, that of course is there. We are going to have state-of-the-art facilities in terms of laboratories, in terms of other facilities. You can visit our website, but also you are going to have a lot of importance on content. At the end of the day, as both of them said, content will always be the king, queen, prince, princess, whatever you call it. And I must say that, you know, you've been, and I think many of you, I mean, you are already journalists in the making with so many questions coming up, you know, you've already started asking questions, and at the end of the day, journalism is about asking questions, and also uncomfortable questions. And we hope that to the best of our abilities, we were able to answer. And of course, you can keep asking questions for the next 2 years, for the next 3 years, and the next 5 years once you join our school. So look forward to meeting you all. And thank you once again, Rohit and Alok, for those wonderful inputs and insights, for sharing them. In fact, I also, it was a trip down memory lane. I was also able to refresh a lot of my own knowledge, perhaps, which has gathered dust on the way. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Kiji. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kiji. Thank you, Kiji. Thanks, Alok.